everything started making a little bit more sense, and I realized how much performance is going on. Like, and I realized even above that, nobody has the answers. Like, nobody has the answers. We genuinely are just put here and we're told to figure it out. Yes, there's already systems in place and structures and whatever, and we know things about life, but nobody actually really, really, truly knows what's going on. Okay, here we are again. We brought the microphone back out. I'm gonna try and do this as naturally as possible, but it's still difficult for me to talk to a camera. But let me walk you through my journey here. So I started with this microphone and filming in January, early January. I was making long form podcast content online that was like 2-3 minute videos. They took me forever to edit. It was really hard for me to get my point across, and I was really like in the mindset of educating rather than just like documenting. So I would spend my entire weekends filming, editing, posting, and just something wasn't working. It was just taking me too much time. There was too much friction. So I decided to switch it up and I went to front-facing content. So I was doing like videos where I put up my phone, but again, in the educational sort of way, like telling people things that they should know or that I've learned. But by taking my phone and putting it up and like educating people on this, one, it was too clickbaity. It didn't feel like me. Second, it was too quick. It was too short. I'm a person who likes to talk and elaborate and just blah, 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 blah. So these short videos just weren't working. And like, to be honest, there's a very big oversaturation online of these types of videos and you can even frankly go see ChatGPT. It's like a motorcyclist. And quite frankly, you can go to ChatGPT and find all the answers to these things. So then in March, I got so fucking busy that I didn't have time to plan out these front-facing videos that I was doing and what topics I wanted to talk about. So I said, hey, maybe I should document how I get through my month, how I get through everything, because I was literally doing school full-time, working full-time, planning a case competition, going to the gym, keeping my mental health up, like just like booked 24/7 basically. So I was like, why not document that? But again, they felt really short. They weren't really like adding that much value. They were just putting my face in front of people. And it's not really what I want to do because I really want to help people. And I wasn't really sure how. So after 3 months of 3 different types of content, I was like, okay, what now? And I hit like a really big down because I was like, okay, nothing feels like me right now. It's kind of burning me out in the sense that it's like exhausting to put on this like facade online. But like, what exactly do I want to help people with? Like, what is going on? Because I started with like emotional based content and like validating people on a large scale. But I'm not an expert. I'm not a psychologist. And people were reaching out to me for help and everything. And I was just like, it's a lot to have on your shoulders. And like, I'm not an expert. And I was like, okay, but what if they find holes in my story? What if they think I'm wrong? What if like someone takes my advice and actually fucks up their life? So I was literally just like stressed out about people not believing or like it not being true or whatever. And then I had the thoughts of like, okay, what if I get canceled? Because, and mind you, I just started out, but I think long term, I think of all situations, but I was like, what if I get canceled? Because let me tell you, I grew up in chaos. I was an absolute menace. I even sometimes still can be a menace, and there's more than enough content out there to cancel me, but I don't think that that should cancel out the good that I'm trying to do for people. So I'm like, okay, there's a possibility I might get canceled. I'm not an expert on things, but I do know some things. People find comfort in my stories and what I have to say. So where the fuck does that leave me? And I dug deep. I hit it down. I was at my grandparents' house. I was like, what the fuck am I gonna do? Like, what's going on? And one question that I found myself circling back to every time, my entire life now, like, that sort of drove me to working on myself, I guess, like, not even, like, There's one question that's haunted me my entire life because, as you guys know, if you've watched my short videos, I grew up in a dysfunctional environment and I could never wrap my head around the fact or wonder why my parents had kids, which is dark, I know. But I even asked my mom while sobbing with tears running down my face, like, why did you have kids? Like, if you don't intend to emotionally support your children, like, why have kids? And my entire life had no idea why I was here. Still honestly don't. But my entire life, I'm like, why am I here? I never asked to be here. Why the fuck do I have to deal with all of this? Why do I have to work on myself? Why do I have to deal with every single day? Like, I was put here by two people who didn't give me the tools to deal with my day-to-day. So how the fuck, like, who said this was okay? Not me. My whole life, I've been talking about this. Why am I here? Why am I here? Why am I here? And I spoke to a psychologist about this at some point. I was like, I can't fucking, like, what's going on? Like, why am I here? And she's like, okay, but I have another question for you. Why do you keep showing up? And I was like, oh, I do keep showing up, don't I? Like, I keep asking why I'm here, but I keep showing up to the best of my abilities every day. I went to university, got good grades, got a good job, try to be a good person. Like, I still show up every day, even though I suffer with my existence and questioning my existence every single day. So I was like, wow, I can't be the only one feeling like this. And I think that a big part of why I've struggled to know why I'm here is because there was such performance around me. Like, we don't talk about problems, we don't talk about emotions, we don't talk about anything that might disrupt social circles. I'm a very direct person, so I confronted a lot of people in my life. I've been very upfront and, like, I've never seen a problem with it, but kind of sometimes actually. But I think that it was so suffocating to just, like, live in performance. And I grew up, okay, I was a little kid, I was having a good time, and then I hit teenagers when I gained consciousness, and I was actually so depressed. I was so depressed, I was so anxious, I was self-harming, I wanted to die every single day. And I grew up feeling absolutely horrible. And I created a lot of chaos within my friendships, within my family, just, like, in general. It was just like a fucking tornado. And growing up in such a emotionally dysfunctional environment, what was ironic about growing up in that environment is they talked about mental health a lot. My uncle passed away when I wasn't even born, and they created a foundation for him, and it was like a mental health based foundation. It still exists. And my whole family were like these big advocates for mental health, and I was just struggling to understand why they would always talk about mental health, but then there was clearly multiple people in our family suffering gravely, and it wasn't like urgent. There was no sense of urgency. And so it was like, okay, it might not be that, like, what's going on? And I was just, like, stuck in this, like, terrible headspace of, like, okay, mental health, but I feel horrible every single day, and everyone's like, keep a smile, be okay, don't talk about problems. And it was so conflicting. And when you're young, you have no idea what the fuck is going on. Like, you don't understand things. You just take things as they are. So I was just like, okay. And there was just this big general sense of performance in my family. And as I grew up and I learned more about how things affected me psychologically, who I am as a person, blah, 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 as you grow up, and then also simultaneously going to therapy and reading books about family dynamics and everything started making a little bit more sense. And I realized how much performance is going on. Like, and I realized even above that, nobody has the answers. Like, nobody has the answers. We genuinely are just put here and we're told to figure it out. Yes, there's already systems in place and structures and whatever, and we know things about life, but nobody actually really, really, truly knows what's going on. So growing up extremely depressed, unwell, what the fuck is going on, to, okay, therapy, learning about myself, learning about life, and being like, okay, so now I know all of these things about life. I also still have this, like, why the fuck am I here? Even though I don't feel like dying today, it's still like, I don't understand why I'm here. It brings me to this podcast topic and why I'm launching it. So it's going to be called Existing Against My Will. And I know it sounds gloomy and whatever, but I really think that it's me. I think my existence is absurd, but I'm doing it anyway. And more specifically, it's the fact that none of us asked to be here, but we're literally performing all the time. Perfect social media, curated social media feed, perfect partner, perfect job, perfect life, perfect attitude. Just everything is just so high stakes and it's suffocating. And I was listening to a presentation at work the other day, and they were saying like 1 in 6 Gen Zs is suffering like a crisis of lonesomeness and aloneness. And it's like, why do you think that is? Because we come from these generations that shoved everything down. Okay, therapy was taboo. We don't talk about problems. We don't talk about anything. And then Gen Z, who's a little bit more vocal about everything. But we have no tools to actually do. Well, we have some, but we don't have the actual tools to go about like living our lives. And we have all this information, like what's going on. And it's like, on top of that, the fact that we're even so self-aware, but still perform. Like, I would argue we are one of the most performative generations with social media, with like, I literally saw a podcast. There's a motorcycle. I literally saw a podcast the other day from this girl in Montreal, and it's called The It Girl Guide. Bro, what are we doing? Like, can we just exist? Can we talk about all the things that like we think about that make us feel strange, that make us feel happy, that are just like us being? Like, I don't know why we're so obsessed with striving for this level of perfection and attention. Not necessarily attention, but like this state of okayness, I guess, where you're like, okay, check, you're a good person for society, move on. Like, there's not enough conversations about emotions, about things that make us upset, things that we think people are going to judge us for, those thoughts that we're like, oh my God, and the things that we do in private. And it's a little bit cliche to talk about Instagram and social media as a highlight reel, but it goes further than that. It's even like internalized in our own heads. And I don't think there's enough conversation about being authentic, being you, and just being, and just taking a deep fucking breath. So basically, naming my podcast Existing Against My Will for a few reasons. One, because I'm existing against my will. I didn't ask to be here, but I'm doing it anyways, and we're gonna go through that together. Secondly, the people who need to hear this will not respond to a podcast name that's like existing anyways, or like live, love, laugh, or whatever. Like, when you're so depressed and suicidal and unwell, you don't want to hear the positivity. You just want to hear about what you're going through. And you just want someone to name the thing. You just want someone to revel in that questioning with you. And I don't think it's dark. I think that the more that we talk about all the things that we don't talk about, that because we disrupt our social circles, because of what we were taught, because what we think our family or friends are going to judge us for, the more we talk about those things, the more relief collectively we're going to feel as a society, and be less depressed and be less anxious. So yes, it's a bold name. I'm there with you. And I'm going to post more of the branding, but think of it as really this like chaotic, self-aware questioning also, because I'm not an expert. I know things about things, like you know things about things, but I'm not an expert. I'm experiencing all of this just as you are. But someone's got to name it. And through my content, I was mainly focusing on validating people emotionally, but I think it goes bigger than that. I think it just goes through experiences and day to day, and not only just, hey, like, this is what an avoidant attachment style is. Like, it was just burning me out talking about those things. I think it's a bigger conversation of like, hey, this is happening. So some examples of things that I'll be talking about. Judgment from others, the way we measure our social success or validation, male validation, friendships, like just like judgment and perception of others. I'm gonna talk about nonchalance and avoidance. We all know dating is fucking horrible right now, and I think again it leads back to the fact that we're not talking about the things, because we all want to be in the relationship, but we're all hurt by somebody. We all don't want to be hurt again. We're all doing the same things over and over and over again, and it's just ridiculous. And we're not talking about it, and it's suffocating us. So I'm going to be talking about dating and nonchalantness and avoidance, because I'm an avoidant, but I'm sick of it. I'm going to make an episode called No One Mourns the Wicked. This is a Wicked reference in case you don't know, but a lot of my life I felt like a villain, especially taking a step back from my family when I realized that they were a little bit more emotionally affecting me than I would have liked. And how despite how good your intentions are, you will be painted negatively if people so choose to. I'll be talking about mental health as a construct and versus being like a real day-to-day thing. Like I mentioned, my family has that foundation where they talk about mental health and everything, and they, on the outside, make it this big abstract topic, but really every single person you know is affected by some sort of mental health aspect every single day. So it's not this big grandiose thing. And even corporate companies that like, oh, mental health month and everything, it's like, okay, but how are you actually talking about the things? Because making it like a mental health day, you're just doing the same thing. You're glorifying it, you're making it shiny. You're not talking about the fact that half your employees are burnt out, or that like your daughter fights with you every single day or won't, you know what I mean? Like it's this big mental health construct, but we're not actually tackling the day-to-day topics that we all need to hear to benefit our mental health. I'm going to be talking about body image. Body image is something I've suffered with my entire life. My entire fucking life, not knowing what I look like, struggling with, at some point I was eating not very much, my relationship with food, my relationship with working out, body image, thinking you look better before versus now, like just like that whole thing, and how we don't really talk about that much. I know there's like body positivity online, but again, it's this big like magical topic when it's really like the day-to-day inner thoughts that we all need to hear about. Especially, also, this is kind of related, but being tall. I'm very tall, I'm 5'10", always struggled with that. Going into that topic, university culture, GPA, fucking don't even get me started about that, but I'll be making an episode about that. Having kids, family dynamics. I wrote here, love is not enough to make kids. I'm gonna go more into depth about that, but like a lot of people who are having kids should not be having kids. Being an older sister, being a daughter, like just all of that. Men with girlfriends. I'm going to talk about that one. Men with girlfriends. One topic that I really am going to enjoy talking about is you are not a fucking girl's girl. I am so sick. I'm so sick of hearing, oh, but like I'm a girl's girl and I do this, and then they just do the complete fucking opposite, but it's like veiled in this like, I don't even know how to explain it. Whatever, it'll be in the episode, but like, for example, people saying girl's girl and throwing that term around when they're actually not. It's just, it's awful. Contact, no contact with family, with people just in general. The concept of family and how you don't have to, like a sentence I've heard a lot my entire life is they're your mom, they're your dad, like you have to have a relationship with them. But again, I didn't ask to exist here. I didn't ask to be here. And you don't have to stay in contact with your family if you don't want to, just because they're your family. But yeah, basically it's just gonna be all of these things that like live inside my head that I'm noting as my existence, but it's naming the things instead of having small talk about how which pop artist is doing XYZ, which I will still do. Like honestly, like that's the whole point of this. That it's just gonna be whatever the fuck. It's gonna be whatever the fuck, but I can promise you it's gonna be takes that aren't the norm, that are like a little bit out there. And just documenting stories, documenting of things I'm going through, things that I've noticed, things that I've learned, But I'm not perfect. And there will be a lot of questions in here. There'll be questions that I don't even have answered yet. But the important part is that we name it and we talk about it and we have conversations about it. I'll also be doing interviews around the city this summer, talking to people. And just my goal is just to bring things into the light. Open the fucking shades. Because we're all here and we didn't ask to be here. None of us did. But we're somehow performing. For what? For who? We're all gonna die. It's not dark. I promise it's not dark. It's actually so positive because when we start talking about the bad things, there's more room to, not bad things, but when we start talking about the things that we think other people are judging us for, or we think is gonna, I don't know, exclude us or whatever, when we start bringing those things to light, it just like gives everyone a bit of relief because everyone's feeling it. Everyone's feeling it. And for example, in marketing right now, there's a trend going more towards in-person experiences and less so digital. And I don't think that that's a coincidence. We're all suffering in our own bubbles, but we just need to start talking, popping the bubbles and being like, okay, my life is not perfect and neither is yours, but we're trying our best and this thing happened and okay, how can we figure this out? And it's just like opening that conversation and being like, hey, no, we didn't ask to be here, but we're doing it anyways and we're talking about it. And I think that that will benefit mental health more than any other fucking thing. Like just talking about it and being open. And I don't have all the answers and I will never claim to be perfect. I never have been. I never will be. I will contradict myself constantly because I have trouble with nuance. I go into the woods. I go whatever. I go all over the place, but I've never been perfect. Never will be. And I would never expect you to be perfect either. We're just sharing. We're talking. I'm just going to name all the things. And who's going to stop me? I saw this TikTok. It was like, no one's coming to save you. Okay, well, no one's coming to stop me either. So why not fuck around and start a podcast? But yeah, so welcome to Existing Against My Will, and I'm very excited for this. Even just now, I didn't stop talking for 1 minute. When I was doing my short videos, I would record and re-record and re-record. What the fuck, girl? So yeah, it may possibly go nowhere, but it's somewhere where I can name the thing, and if anyone wants to listen, well, I'm here. So if you made it all the way to the end of this first episode, wow. Welcome. You'll officially be an OG if this ever takes off, but thank you so much for listening, and yeah, super excited. Stay tuned for the next episode, and if you're listening on Spotify, please download the episode. If you're listening on YouTube, please subscribe. And if you're watching a little clip of this on Instagram, follow, send me a message, like, whatever. But let's all exist and let's all talk about it and stop performing collectively. Thank you for listening.